Hello, everyone. Today we have one of the classic fashion photography books of all time that came out in 1996. It is this book here. It is LaChapelle Land by David LaChapelle. This book is a classic and amazing design, great photography. It was the very first book David LaChapelle put out. And 1996, it was a big deal. Not everybody had Photoshop, and kind of, also one of the golden eras of magazine work. So there was a lot of great work being commissioned for magazines, fashion magazines and editorial magazines. And David was doing all of that. We're going to take this book to the table and take a look. Okay, so what we have here is LaChapelle Land by photographer David LaChapelle. This book came out in 1996. And, it was always fascinating to me. I liked David LaChapelle's work, but when I saw this book, just the general look of it, it almost looked like it was a game, as if you were buying Monopoly or something. And, I think traditionally I was such a, kind of a traditionalist, I'm used to photo books put out by Aperture or something. And here, this book just seemed to me at the time to break these rules, and it seemed fun and interesting, but it also had a sense of, a true awareness of the history of photography, and LaChapelle knew his influences. And so let's take a look at this. It was a box that held the book, and then the book itself is here. And then it also included at the back, the LaChapelle land map, which told you about every photograph that was in the book. And I think it says who it was done for. There's a picture of Kristen Slater shot in Hollywood for the Face magazine in 1994. And so, what that allows you to do is just get into the book and not worry about reading anything. Now, the book is so grand and it's so dramatic. It really, it essentially is a greatest hits type of photo book, which usually these things don't succeed because they're they try to cover too many things or cover too much ground in the history of a photographer's career. But David LaChapelle put this on early in his career, and to me it always seemed like he had really hit a stride. He had figured out how to make pictures that were uniquely his. I think this is the boat that used to be in San Francisco. I think it's still there at the pier. And so, think of 1996. Photoshop was not on everybody's computer then. And so David was doing a lot of things, I think there's simple Photoshop things going on, but, he was really standing people on giant props like this. And he was really building sets to have someone dress up like, Madonna as an old lady, as well. And, an old Courtney Love. And so, there was a lot of ideas going on. There was a lot of, real props happening. He was working a lot with prop stylists and wardrobe stylists to really kind of bring these things to life. And I remember at the time, there was a lot of discussion of how he convinced, people to do the stuff that they were doing in these photographs. And, you never know exactly how this stuff all transpires. And then he also has very stripped down, simple pictures. I mean, here is a super elaborate photograph with all these kind of film references with this car exploding in the background. And then here is who I think is Liza Minnelli walking in the rain in Central Park, and willing to make a blurry photograph that looks like early Richard Avedon. Here's two twins in Miami who aren't famous at all. Andy Warhol, an early photograph. And it looks like, David LaChapelle put some of his early photographs in this when he used to work just specifically in black and white. And, there is something about this book that the pacing is good. And from picture to picture, it's solid. And it's not just the style that carries things through. I just think there's a smart editor in this that allows us to kind of imagine little stories here. And these two images, I don't know if these were done for the same, fashion spread or something, but, here's a model with a giant lipstick, and then here's these giant lips that look like they're in the back of a warehouse. Just these two things work really well together, and I think they're just really smart.
Here's another giant inflatable prop. I had read about him having these things made. This is a picture they did in Times Square, and I think there was an interview with him at the time where there was no permits. They just kind of winged it. You know, they had someone drop the chair down and drop all these balloons down and just tried to make the photograph. And so, you know, there was kind of random things happening. Here's a big elaborate set with all these, you know, people from daytime TV shows in the 1970s. And so, I mean, these things are technically fascinating, but he had such a strong voice and such, you know, these things were very uniquely his. You know, it's funny, I talk about his work to the students and they have never heard of David LaChapelle, where to me, there was a time, you know, when this came out, this book came out in 96, and a lot of these images were appearing editorially, like 93, 94, 95. I think this was from a fashion spread. I think it was done for the New York Times. And, you know, those people aren't famous. They aren't celebrities. But, you know, it was created. I think, you know, he set that up. He would use unconventional models. And I think probably at this point, a lot of the kind of celebrities that appear in this book probably aren't recognized by anyone. Again, here's Liza Minnelli. I think, you know, shot, I think it was like in the 80s. And so there's a lot of images in this book. And to me, it still really holds up. You know, we're going image by image here. But it is, you know, there was a consistency of vision, the colors, the speed, the creativity. And, you know, at the time, like I said earlier, I was a newspaper photographer. And this book came out in 96 and I loved it. And and I think I was like influenced by it, even though I was like, you know, I set up portraits and stuff like that. But there was just something about the intelligence and how the viewer was rewarded in these photographs by spending time to look at them, that it even influenced me here. And I was a newspaper photographer. And so I do believe the influence in fashion and editorial was really great, you know. Here, this is a burger place in Los Angeles that he photographed the Beastie Boys in. And I've been to that place. And it does look like that. And I think he's kind of made it look a little more cluttered by putting signs in early versions of Photoshop to try to, you know, make it look a little more kind of chaotic. Here's actor Jim Carrey, and they created a set to look like it was his junior prom. And then his date is someone with a terrible sunburn and also on crutches for whatever reason. Here was actor Tom Arnold dressed like a, kind of like someone who would advertise a fried chicken place or something. And so, you know, there was just a lot of stuff going on. This picture right here probably doesn't age that well. It just looks like a big Photoshop concoction or something like that. But in a magazine, I could see it being kind of fascinating. And then here, it's like a poignant photograph. It's a girl at a birthday party that seems to have run out of control. And I'm sure, you know, she's crying. She's in a dress. It's a mess. You know, and at the time, I think his photographs were, you know, the busyness and the kind of chaos that would take place and the layers of things is really what he was known for. Here's the burger place again. Looks like he uses that location a number of times for a fashion shoot. And so, you know, it was like pop culture that seemed to just kind of surface. And there was a quote from David himself that they used to promote this book. And it said, "There's a tradition of celebrity portraiture that attempts to uncover the real person behind the trappings of their celebrity. I am more interested in those trappings," says David LaChapelle. And then, you know, in this promo, it says, "Indeed, he exaggerates the artificiality of fame and Hollywood culture in a head-on collision of color, plastic, and whimsy. His photographs confront our visual taste and challenge our ideas of celebrity, all the while taking us on a roller coaster ride through the hyper-sensationalized galaxy." Usually these things that publishers say about books seem like nonsensical to me, but but that one actually I thought seemed accurate. Yeah, it's just, you know, and there's a lot of work here that he did in a concentrated period of time. And myself, I'm very rarely like impressed when a celebrity's in a photograph. You know, like I just want a great photograph. I don't care if a celebrity is in it or not. But he was commenting on the culture. And here's David Bowie kind of being a series of masks. And here's Drew Barrymore with this kind of like innocent sexuality. And he was able to really kind of interpret these celebrities. And, my belief was that the celebrities probably enjoyed, kind of collaborating with him. Here's Leonardo DiCaprio. Because the ideas were different. They were fun. They were original. And then every now and then when we see the black and white photographs, they're just kind of great too. And they almost seem like, very much informed by street photographs from, from another era, like from the 1970s and stuff. And so, he definitely knew his photographic influences. Let's look at the end here and see how they end this book, because really it kind of goes on and on and on. I believe this was album art that was done for a Smashing Pumpkins album. And here, it starts to become more real people again. And myself, I really loved his real people photos. I just thought they were empathetic. They were still colorful and designed. But they just seemed a little more maybe relatable because they weren't, celebrities. Here's a picture in India. Some fashion work. Wow, that's how they end it. They end it with this kind of like fashion birth of a baby from a shoe, like a shoe pictorial. So that's interesting. Yeah, kind of surprising that they didn't end it on kind of like a quieter note. And then there's a piece kind of written by David LaChapelle here himself, where he talked about how his mom and he would kind of set up photographs when he was little. Oh, I guess this is actually the true ending of the photograph. Or of the book, which is kind of a spiritual photograph. And it was interesting to me at the time that it also said at the end that all royalties due David LaChapelle and David LaChapelle Inc. from the publication of this book will be donated to God's Love We Deliver Incorporated, a charity that he was active with at the time. And so, there is something that was just kind of like generous about this book, generous in how he shared his images and, that financial note, which really I don't think I noticed until later, that was the case. But it was just kind of like a true celebration of his work. And this book, came out in 96 and still stands the test of time, I think.